Yeah, not as cut and dried as saying it was all down to Liam Rossignol, certainly. Let's get the thoughts now on his sacking from a former Chelsea and England defender. It's Graeme Saux. Good afternoon, Graeme.
Hello, Graeme.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Graeme.
So, I take it probably didn't come as a massive surprise to you either after that performance at Brighton.
No, to be honest, it was more of a surprise for me that he got appointed than he got fired. On the basis that where the club were, what the requirement was at the point of Enzo Maresca leaving Chelsea, Champions League qualification is absolutely essential when you look at the financial situation that Chelsea are in, the aspirations of the club, the group of players they've spent a huge amount of money on. So to bring in Liam felt like plugging a gap and a reactive move rather than anything overly planned. And obviously the connection he had with Strasbourg, his relationship with the ownership and Blue Co, as well as I'm sure the recruitment team at Chelsea with the 5 or so sporting directors that they've got, was probably a reason why he got installed. But it was clear that, you know, when you're dealing with a club like Chelsea, you're managing so many different aspects of a club day to day, you know, both up and down, left and right, on and off the pitch, that the skill set you need, I think Liam would admit was always going to be a challenge for him. Do you have sympathy for him on a human level, Graeme? Oh yeah, I do. You know, you can't blame him for taking the job. I think he's a result of, or his firing and his tenure was a result of the problems at Chelsea. It wasn't a cause of it, and you can see that the lack of fit between his profile, status, experience, and that of what was expected of him from both, you know, off the pitch and on the pitch. It was always clear to me that he was going to be, you know, we're going to see him sort of deconstruct in front of our eyes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and even just the body language in his press conferences, the language he used, the way he tried to control what he was saying, it wasn't genuine. I never felt that. And if I can feel that, having no relationship with Liam and not working with him day to day, imagine how the players feel in the dressing room. Yeah. They pick up on these. I don't want to call them weaknesses, because you know, it can't be a weakness if you've not got the tools at your disposal through lack of experience. So I just think, you know, that he was put in a position he was always doomed to fail, and you could see that by the gradual implosion of everything that's sort of going on at the club at the moment.
When players start to down tools, Graeme, how does that manifest itself in a squad? Is it one or two and then it just spreads? How does that work?
I think you have the alpha males within any dressing room that sort of are quick to sort of pounce on any weakness that they see in people. And I think one of the challenges Chelsea have got, and again, it's completely self-inflicted, you put young aspiring players without any real experienced leaders that have been through the process and have earned their position, shall we say, within the club to have opinions, to be part of a leadership group. When you see these younger players sort of, you know, sensing a manager's soft spots, shall we say, and then decisions are made that they maybe don't agree with, that rupture can happen very quickly. And it's a case of, it's not so much not wanting to play for someone, it's just not having the real belief that they really know how to take you into a game, out the other side, and on a run of games that's going to sort of meet your expectations. And when I watch a lot of Chelsea games with the work that I do for NBC, and when you see the body language of the players warming up, the subs, even the way they were warming up, I thought was unprofessional a lot of the time. The interactions between the players when they're sort of throwing their arms at each other, I should say. All of these little micro signs add up to, I think, just a dressing room that was not ever really behind him or really trusted that he had the experience to make them perform better.
I mean, some of those players went off on international duty and were very upfront about the fact that, well, not so much that they didn't rate him, but they weren't happy that Maresca left and they didn't quite know what was going on, which isn't helpful. I mean, does that point to a bad dressing room in your eyes, Graeme?
Well, look, these players are massively ambitious, and they're getting, you know, they're getting the rewards of players that are sort of, I think, too soon for some of them, certainly, with the lack of experience. These huge long contracts come with a consequence as well, because you're creating a security and a buffer around the player and his own performance against a manager and a club. So when you've got so many young players on long contracts, they're going to feel entitled. And that's what I think is a result of some of the press conferences when players go back to their countries. They'll be embarrassed as well by the fact that they're underperforming. Enzo Fernandez, a World Cup winner, going back to Argentina, he'd be embarrassed about what's happening at Chelsea. And obviously it's happened, for a long, long time, players going on international duty and saying things that are a bit more relaxed with their, when they're in their own sort of environment, and they say things that they don't think are necessarily going to reach the club. And obviously that's not the case, but it undermines everyone. And discipline and guardrails is an absolutely vital part of managing a squad of young, highly ambitious, men that have got, egos, want to achieve and have talent. You've got to manage that, and you've got to manage it really carefully. And again, these are all symptoms of a wider problem at Chelsea, but obviously something that Liam never really had the ability to set those guardrails with any credibility that people took him seriously.
The next permanent appointment is obviously going to be a key one, and there is a bit of a perception that if you walk into that, you're going to have to work within the structure that Blue Co have set up with the sporting directors, etc., and that won't fit the profile of certain managers. I see Diego Simeone's in the betting. That seems unlikely. Iraola is favourite because he has been kind of working in a structure like that. Cesc Fabregas has been mentioned. Marco Silva, Felipe Luis, who's ex-Chelsea, and he's sort of coming on. Even Frank Lampard for a return, but you imagine he'll spend another first season at Cov. Who do you see as the ideal fit, Graeme?
Well, I think you could sort of name any one of those, and sort of you could argue why they're a good fit and maybe not such a good fit. I think it goes there's a much more fundamental problem here at Chelsea, and I would be, if I was, going into the club today and doing some work for them, so they asked me to audit what had happened, the first thing I would do is try and establish what the process was of hiring Liam in the first place, and understand that process. And again, it's not about Liam Rossigna at all. It's about why you felt that was the right person for the job at the time. Trying to understand that, and as you say, how that fits into the approach that the club have, and that the sporting directors are working under a remit. They're being entrusted to deliver what the ownership wants. And I suppose the most basic question to ask, all those decision makers in Blue Co is, well, what is it you're trying to achieve over what period of time, and how much success do you want on and off the pitch? Until you understand that, you don't understand how to put the pieces together. Because fundamentally, if it's a grow the business and develop players to sell them and look at them as assets, as all these things we're hearing, without necessarily needing to succeed on the pitch, that's one version. If we need a hybrid of, developing a return on the investment and being successful on the pitch, that changes everything. And so until you understand that, and I don't think anybody understands that, I don't think internally they do, because the mixed messages that come from performance demands versus the investment strategy, they're not aligned at all. And that a simple example of that is there's no balance in that squad. There's no balance to bring stability on the pitch and experience on the pitch against, a hugely talented but developing group of young players that don't have any cover, don't have any protection. So, I mean, I know Andoni Iraola well from my time in working in Spanish football when he was at Mirandés and Rayo Vallecano, and he's a fantastic coach. What he's done at Bournemouth is absolutely tremendous. But he's a serious manager. So I would, if I was speaking to Andoni, I'd be saying, do you want to be the next one that's been put into that mangle and spat out the other side? Because we've seen Thomas Tuchel, Maurizio Pochettino have gone in, Graham Potter. The Enzo is it doesn't matter how much experience you've got to align everything and give a coach autonomy in certain decisions, and then allow the strategists at the club to build the plan, but not at the cost of what's happening on the pitch. And I'm afraid when you look at what's happening on the pitch, that's exactly the outcome they've managed to deliver.
Really interesting, Graeme. Thanks ever so much.
Graeme.
We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks a lot.
Look forward to it. See you both soon.